All right. Hopefully, I've got everything where people can actually hear me today. I accidentally had my mic the other day where it was allowing me to hear the playback, but it was not allowing other people to hear me. So, kind of what I want to talk about today is, man, this just been one crazy week. Honestly, I believe that this last week has been better for President Trump than his first 100 days. I mean, come on, what I mean, just everything that's been going on this week and happened this week is just insane. I mean, to think the amount of stuff and the historical amount of stuff that President Trump has got done this week is outrageous. I mean, nobody, he's gotten so much done this week, it's unreal. I mean, he's the first U.S. president to ever go to Qatar. He secured $1.2 trillion in investments for the American people. And while, yes, people are saying, well, it's one of the largest arms deals in the world. Yeah, but that large arms deal is purchasing stuff from American manufacturers and American plane manufacturers, from Boeing, from other government contractors within the United States. Also, it included a big AI infrastructure inspection. So like I said, I want to address several critical issues that have surfaced in my comments and posts over the past weeks, particularly concerning President Trump's administration, immigration, laws, tariffs, trade, and the economy as a whole. Now, while some may perceive the tariff actions as arbitrary, they represent a carefully calculated maneuver of President Trump's to gain leverage and resources that will help us tackle our national debt, rejuvenate our industrial base, and redefine our position in the global arena. As we can see, they are already starting to work with the UK trade deal, China coming to the table to negotiate, and the $1.2 trillion in investments President Trump secured while on his trip to Saudi Arabia. The Saudi deal was one of the largest arms deals in the history of global politics. All of those purchases were from, like I said a minute ago, American companies. And he also secured hundreds of billions in AI infrastructure investments for the United States, which will help us remain the world superpower, a global power, and bring us into the future. At the same time, the left and establishment Republicans may not be happy with some of President Trump's moves while in Doha and Qatar. He did what he needed to. I mean, it's about time we stop wasting trillions of dollars and thousands of lives on nation building and trying to force our way of life on people who don't want it and never will. They'll never accept it. Peace is always the best move forward. And if we can't show trust to our allies, how do we expect them to show respect or trust back? Also, to all the Democrats and rhinos who are not happy with President Trump accepting a $400 million jet from the Department of Defense on behalf of Qatar, why shouldn't we get support from our allies? We've given them hundreds of millions, billions, trillions of dollars. Why can't we accept? We're not supposed to accept when they offer us an in-kind gift. I mean, come on. Well, President Trump can let them know, hey, you can't expect anything in return. We've already given you all this. I mean, to President Trump's mind, this is a gift from all of our assistance over the last 50 to 60 years. As for security reasons, it would have to be retrofitted with our technologies and security measures, which means it wouldn't be ready on us together. But honestly, I still believe this is Trump trolling Boeing as a ploy to get Boeing off their you know what and finish the Air Force Ones President Trump ordered during his first term from them. I think it's more of this than it is of him actually taking the jet. And now, while President Trump had a very successful first 100 days, I would argue that the last week has been more historic than the first 100. I mean, his team negotiated the last American hostage release from Hamas, got Zelensky to sit down for a face-to-face meeting with Putin, extended an olive branch out to Iran with a timeline and an ultimatum, signed a trade deal with the UK, and got China to the negotiating table and signed a peace deal negotiated a peace deal between Pakistan and India, all in the last week, which doesn't include the major win that the Supreme Court handed the Trump administration, allowing them to start deporting illegal immigrants under the Alien Enemies Act again as of yesterday. And then also another big win was last night. A federal grand jury handed down an indictment to the Wisconsin judge who had hid an illegal immigrant from ICE and snuck him out the back door through her judge's chambers. So now we're actually starting to see these crooked activist judges being charged with a crime. Now, and Trump's DOJ is finally showing that they will not stand for blatant disregard for the law, and no matter who you are, you will be punished. Now, hopefully, this is a sign of what we're going to see happen more, and that hopefully we'll see something with this, like this, with the New Jersey mayor and the 3 Democrat Congress members who stormed the ICE detention center in New Jersey and attacked ICE officers last Friday. Now, they're allowed to be in there. While yes, members of Congress do have the right to inspect federal facility, whether government owned or privately owned, they have to go through the proper channels and check in at the front door and wait for a detention officer to guide them through a facility. They can't just rush through an open gate that was only open for a bus full of detainees to gain entry. That's not how you do it. And what they won't tell you is they went back later on and did their view, but you don't see that in the news because the fact was they found nothing that they thought they were going to, nothing that was newsworthy, and they didn't find anything that fit their agenda. So of course they're not going to report it then. I mean, it doesn't fit their agenda. And then also on the other thing with those Republican Representative Buddy Carter is putting forward articles to strip the committee positions of all 3 of the Congress members who participated. Now, while that's an excellent start, like I said a minute ago, hopefully we'll start seeing some criminal charges coming from the DOJ and even maybe see Congress impeach and remove them from office, which I think would be one of the first times we've ever seen that. Usually they force them out. Now, in another shocking turn of events, I just posted about this earlier, House Democrats are actually going to join with Republicans to help shut down the push towards impeaching President Trump again. I guess they finally learned that impeachment is not a winning strategy, which is a shock. When I read that news article, I was really shocked. Now, also last night, the Ways and Means Committee worked through the night to move the tax portion of President Trump's big, beautiful bill out of committee, reaching a significant hurdle in the construction of the bill. Now we need the other 11 committees to finish their portions of the bill to get it to the House floor for a vote, then on to the Senate and President Trump's desk for signature before July 4th. Now, the thing is we don't know exactly how long it'll take them to get the rest of the stuff done. But yes, everybody's been asking me, did they keep all the stuff in there? Yes, the no tax on tips is in there. It's up to $150,000 a year. The no tax on overtime is up to $160,000. No tax on Social Security. I can't remember the exact limit on that. They raised the child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,500, and the business deduction went from 20 to 23%. So that's all in there. Once the full bill is actually completed and out of committee and stuff, I will read it, go through it, and then do a live over that on everything that's covered, because it's a lot. There's a large amount as far as that goes. But President Trump's trip to the Middle East, I mean, it's just another thing that people are forgetting is it's stopping China from getting a foothold in the area. If we don't go in there and invest, China will. And the last thing we need is China in the Middle East. So America being the first president to go to Qatar and all that stuff and do the economic development, that helps us keep China out of it and gives us more benefits. I mean, come on, you're talking about 2 of the largest areas of LNG and oil. And then as far as the immigration and everything goes like that, and the federal activist judges, if Trump was to try to just deport illegal immigrants solely under Article 8 powers, allowing each individual the opportunity to contest their deportation, it would take him 20 to 30 years for that to happen because of the fact of how many backlog cases they have, not including the amount of illegal immigrants that unknown that are in the country that don't even have a court case. So the declaring of the national emergency and doing the Alien Enemies Act was a way to get illegal immigrants who were here that don't fall under the expedite process and get through them being considered criminal legal immigrants, members of a terrorist organization or international terrorist organization, which then makes them not qualify to get residency or to get status, which means they're automatically deportable. And then Secretary of State Marco Rubio actually stated that when the founding fathers drafted the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, they intended it to act as an antibody against foreign armies, criminal networks, and individuals who sought to do America harm. So while Democrats and leftist organizations would rather fight the Trump administration by protecting violent criminal gang members, even though they know that evidence exists, that Trinidad Wagra has ties to the Venezuelan government. And the whole purpose is to disrupt America's security and destabilize our government. And they're literally helping them do it. I mean, they care more about winning and sowing division and maintaining power than they care about doing what is best for America. I mean, they keep on proving it again and again and again. Took his office from a second term on January 20th, leftist activist groups have strategically utilized federal district courts and engaged in judge shopping to challenge President Trump's agenda. That includes district judges issuing nationwide injunctions to thwart the enforcement of various policies, including leveraging the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. And the funny thing is this wasn't a big thing. Judges didn't do this. And they're keyword, they are district court judges. They are not Supreme Court judges. They do not cover the whole nation. Okay, so if they can issue if they can issue an order, it's to cover a person in their district, which is a couple states, 1 or 2, 3 states, small area. That's it. It's not for the whole area. And they're going beyond their power. They're breaking the Constitution and trying to legislate from the bench is what they're doing, or even take over like they're the president. Because now the funny thing is they say the left is attacking us for coming after the federal judges for this, but Republican groups were just as guilty for doing the same thing during the Biden administration, the Obama administration when this started. And even the Democrats were pushing to say that it was unconstitutional because they're like, how is it fair that a district judge from one little area can infect a policy agenda item for the whole United States, considering it takes 3 to 4 years to go through a process from them all the way up to the Supreme Court? I mean, that's literally what it's doing. But if you look at Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution states, in all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and councils, and those in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. President Trump or the Trump administration is the state. They're the United States, which means the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction in all the other cases before mentioned, and the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make, which Congress hasn't. Congress has never said that federal judges can issue nationwide injunctions. It is unconstitutional for them to do so. The Congress shouldn't have to pass a bill to get this to stop it from happening when it's unconstitutional, plain as day, because it says ambassadors and councils, which is the executive branch, and then it says state, which President Trump is the state, or Trump's administration is the state, the United States, which means they have no legal constitutional right to hear those cases. It is the Supreme Court who has original jurisdiction. The only way that they have a right to hear that case is if the Supreme Court gives up that jurisdiction. Original means it starts with the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court could say, hey, we don't have time to hear this. Can you hear it for us? But that is for them to decide, and the Supreme Court has not said that. So this judge shopping, it shouldn't have to be a legislative act passed. It's clearly, blatantly unconstitutional. I mean, and then Democrats talk about that, but yet their Democrat governors have ramped up sanctuary city policies, including issuing new directives that instruct state and law enforcement not to participate in large-scale roundups or to work with or assist Border Patrol or Immigration and Customs Enforcement with finding and locating criminal illegal immigrants held within their jails or living in their communities. And the funny thing is, the left is adamant that President Trump's border and immigration policies go too far, but yet they're the ones that are violating the Constitution and violating the Supremacy Clause that states that anything to do with immigration enforcement lands on the foot of the president and the executive branch and ends with them, not states. Only the federal government has the right to regulate policies with immigration, not cities. So they have a lack of respect for the federal authority of Border Patrol and ICE, immigration policies and requests. I mean, come on, how are we supposed to take them serious? They sit there and say we don't have respect for the Constitution, and when they don't either. I mean, they care more about sowing division and dividing this country than they care and power than they care about actually getting stuff done. Because, for example, on this executive order for the medical EO for prescription drug prices, this is something the left has run on forever. Now, I've heard some far right people and libertarians come out and say, oh, it's price controls. No, it's not. We're paying triple and quadruple and 10, 20 times more than everybody else because all the other countries have price controls. What we're saying is you have to charge us what you're going to charge them. We're not going to pay all this extra money because they want to have price controls. Not going to happen. Now, obviously, because of that point, if let's say it's a medication that's 50% more in Europe than it is here, it might only go down by 25% because now Europe's got to pay that extra 25 that we're paying over it. They've got to pay equal to us. So it probably drops maybe 25% on our end. If it's 80%, maybe it drops 40, 50. It won't drop the 80, 90% like he was talking about in that, but still, it will substantially drop without affecting supply or the ability for the drug companies to make the drugs, because they have got to quit. They've got to stop paying, letting these other countries force. If these other countries don't want to pay what needs to be paid, then pull it out of those countries. Don't ship to them. Let them not have the drugs, because it's unfair that Americans should have to pay $10,000 for a prescription when another country pays $1,000. Or for like the Ozempic drug he gave an example of. Somebody can go over in Europe and pay $88 for it, but here it's $1,300. Now, think of the amount of money that would save on Medicaid and Medicare. The $830 million that everybody was saying, oh, they're going to cut, that would be nothing. They could cut more if that happened, because one of the most expensive costs of medical insurance and medical care is prescription medications. It's treatments. And that's where we're just getting leveled against every other country, because we're literally supporting. The only reason socialized medicine works in Canada, the UK, Germany, France, Italy, Australia, is because we're supporting it. We're paying for their socialized healthcare. We're the only reason it works. If we quit paying all that extra money for that medicine, their socialized healthcare goes bankrupt. And it proves that the system doesn't work. They're robbing Peter. They're robbing for us to pay Paul, is what they're doing. We're allowing ourselves to get screwed over and tricked into paying for them to have socialized healthcare. So explain to me how that, if they tried to go socialized healthcare with on the Democrats, explain to me how that would have worked. When now they're saying we shouldn't do it with just the medicine prices. But if the Democrats will not come together and work with the Republicans on a bipartisan bill to get this executive order codified in the law, they are showing right then and there that they care more about hating Trump, that they care more about trying to win an election or keeping power and keeping control over the people than they actually do of winning an election. Because, yeah, they're worried about getting money, but I can tell you this. If they go out there and they do this bill, they won't need money from the drug companies, because people will show up to vote for them, especially the people whose parents and loved ones are still alive, because they could now afford to get their medication for their treatment. They could afford to get treated for their cancer, for whatever, they could afford to get their insulin pills or whatever that they couldn't have afforded to get before and may have passed away from not having it. But yet they're not going to do anything because, oh, it's President Trump. I mean, that's why I was really shocked that they actually, the top Democrats were, like I said earlier, that they're actually agreeing to um, uh, go ahead and team up with Republicans to um, uh, get stop the impeachment push for President Trump. Like that really shocked me, considering how many of the they're not going to do this bill. But yeah, I mean, I think this last week and a half has been more historic for President Trump than his first 100 days. Well, he got a lot done in that first 100 days. It feels like a lot of this. Now, obviously, he was probably working on a lot of this stuff in the first 100 days. It just got all announced right towards the end. But I have a feeling that's one of the reasons. And now another thing funny I think is really funny is that all these people, nobody's talking about how President Trump's charges got dropped, how they got removed, and how he even got awarded his attorney fees back. But please like, follow, subscribe if you like what you hear right now. For subscribers, I'm just going to do a individual thread. Once I actually get enough subscribers to do a live, I'll start doing subscriber lives and stuff like that. Obviously, if I ever get enough subscribers where I can do this full time, then eventually I will do lives on here, but I'll also take the second half of my podcast and move it over to one of the other two streamers where I have more freedom of speech, and then I can cover more subjects. I'll do all the PG sections on here and then move over to the more in-depth, more maybe a little controversial sections over there. But yeah, it's just getting crazy how this left is going with this stuff and how they're freaking out about him. Like he let Syria, or gave Syria a chance to prove themselves because it's a new president and stuff. Well, or lift the sanctions. Come on, people, let them try. If Syria doesn't do what they're supposed to and they mess up, we can put the sanctions back on like that. Snap of a finger. We can put them back on as fast as we take them off. He can put them right back on if they don't do good. If they do good, now they need the money to do good. They need the money to make those movements. And with the sanctions, that stops them from having the money to do it. So he's saying, hey, I'll relieve the sanctions, I'll give you a chance to prove it. But obviously the war hawks would rather have him not do it, which I think is hilarious. And then this partnering and taking money from Saudi Arabia. I mean, look, Saudi Arabia just built in 2 years, built more than what we could think of today. Probably build it, that what they've built in the last 2-3 years over in Saudi Arabia would probably take 20-30 years in America. Now, so if all of those buildings and stuff actually would meet American standards or exceed it, and actually show to be able to withstand or built really well, good construction, then we need to move some people over there and figure out how in the world they did it. Because it's ridiculous I'm in real estate development, and with technology advancing, you would think construction times would go down. No, they've gone up. Construction times have gotten longer, not shorter. And that's another thing, is when everybody goes, oh, they expect President Trump's stuff to economy to reset or fix overnight, and says he's bringing all these companies back to America, but why we haven't seen it? Well, the reason why you haven't seen it is because the fact that it takes time to build. You can't build 20 buildings in a night. It takes years. Once the company announces it, they have to get approval from their board. They've got to look at what state or what city they're going to move to, what land they're going to find. Then once they do that, then they got to work out all the agreements of tax breaks and stuff with the cities, see who gives them the best one. Then they got to vote. If it's a publicly traded company, their board's got to vote on which one they're going to do. And then once they find the land and they buy it, and they actually purchase land, then they have to start going through all of the civil and environmental approvals and reviews and all that stuff. And then that takes another 6 months, a year, sometimes 2 years. And then they start construction. That takes another 12 months to 24 months. And then once construction is completed, then they can actually start populating the building and start hiring and stuff like that. So if you think about it, all the onshoring that President Trump got during his first term, towards the end of his first term, all right, all the agreements he got, because of COVID pretty much stopping everything, the end that last year of his first term and the first year and a half, almost 2 years of President Biden's term, all those extra jobs that came on during Biden's term were actually because of Trump. They were projects that had been delayed and delayed and delayed, and then finally came on during President Biden's term. And that's the only reason he even had that little bit of help. So the same thing will happen this time. President Trump, all these onshoring jobs President Trump's getting, the majority of them are going to take years to come to fruition. And we won't actually notice it until, since he can't run 2 terms consecutively, we wouldn't have seen it until second term. Because what a lot of people forget is when it comes to economics, stuff runs a year, 2 years behind. You're not running everything up front. You're not seeing stuff as it doesn't happen automatically. I mean, there's certain things you can do automatically, like tax breaks and other things like that. But when it comes to have to do with building jobs, bringing jobs in, stuff like that, it takes years for that to happen. So that's not something President Trump can do in day one. That's something that takes a while. And it's just hilarious that they try to I keep on hearing all these people going, "Oh, this Biden left you." No, Biden left us high inflation, an inflated stock market due to cheap money printed, because he printed money and printed money, grew the debt, grew the debt, grew the debt. And this stock market correction was needed. Luckily, it didn't correct as big as I thought it was going to. It didn't take as long. Like I was originally saying, President Trump was using the tariffs to get people to the table. I can promise you, he tried to negotiate these trade deals his first term, but nobody would come to the table. Nobody was going to negotiate with him. So pretty much he let everybody know before he came to the office this time, if you don't come to the table, I'm going to throw all these tariffs on. We're a bigger economy. We're a bigger country. I'll force you to do it. And now I hear all these people saying, "Oh, he caved to China and he pulled this." No, he got China to actually come to the negotiating table. That's the whole point. Was he got China to release the non-tariff barriers to allow us to start shipping stuff to start coming back over here. He got China removed the 145% tariff off of the stuff that he had done it on. So President Trump did what the tariffs did what he wanted. He got China to the negotiating table and he got them to remove the stuff. So of course he suspended them for 90 days. Now, if they don't get a I wouldn't say if they get a trade deal 90 days, because that's not going to happen. That's a big deal between us and China. But if he doesn't see that there's progress towards a completed trade deal in 90 days, he can reenact those tariffs, because it's going to take a year or two, just like it did with the Canada-Mexico trade agreement. That took like 2 years to put together. The Canadian-Mexican agreement is about the same thing as U.S. and China. So it'll probably take 2 years to get the deal together. But I think what he's going to look at is can he see that there is honest negotiation going on, that they're making movements and advancing the bill. They're getting through the different supply chain, because they have to go line by line on the supply chain. They have to go through agriculture, and they have to go all through all the different agricultural products. Then they have to go through meat and animals, so like all those products, and they have to go through everything else, and they have to go through each individual line items of those products to negotiate the trading on each individual product. So that takes a long time to structure a bill like that. So I think as long as President Trump sees that there is advancements going on in 90 days, then he will leave the tariffs suspended. If he doesn't see that China is being honest, coming to the table, talking, being honest about where they get back to where they were the last time, then he'll put the tariffs back on. As far as the, I was trying to remember the other trade. I just remember the other deal I was going to talk about with President Trump, but now it blew my mind. But yeah, it slipped my mind. So yeah, I mean, it's insane that people think that it's not that he wants to, he's using these tariffs to get what's better for America. Because right now, think about this. Right now, if China or an adversary wanted to defeat us in a war, they don't have to invade our country. All they have to do is sit there and attack our military equipment and installations, because right now we would eventually run out of steel, computer chips, and processors to build more. And then they could just come swoop in, because we'd be back in the Stone Age. I mean, that's with us depending on so many stuff. And the sad thing is the majority of everything technological today is made from rare earth minerals. Almost all of that comes from China. Now, whether China gets it from their country or they get it from Africa because they've gone in and taken over Africa and done a lot of stuff with them, but either way, it's still coming from China. And if we're at war with them, or we're in a World War III with them, they're not going to magically give us the rare earth minerals so we can rebuild our ships, rebuild our planes, rebuild our equipment and technology so we can win the war. They're not going to do that. They're just gonna they're just gonna let us sit there. They don't even need to attack us. That's the thing. That's why Trump is trying to get jobs back over here. Another thing, okay, well, I don't think it'll happen maybe in my working lifetime. I'll probably be retired by the time this happens. But our children, the main jobs when our children graduate are going to be AI, programming, engineering, or blue collar jobs. The majority of the white collar jobs outside of being a lawyer, an attorney, maybe a project manager, even doing research and stuff will be okay. They were just talking about this on the Health and Human Services was just talking about this. Studies in the government that used to take a team of like 10, 20 people and that used to take 2-3 months to do. Now they can have 1 or 2 people that complete that study in a matter of 2 days. So a lot of the white collar jobs are going, not blue. So if we don't bring back and reshore these more modern blue collared manufacturing jobs, we're not going to have any employment for our people. Now, I don't see it eventually, even the blue collar jobs will eventually get replaced by robots. And then I don't know what we'll do. I guess we'll be like in the one movie where you get a robot and you maintain that robot and that robot works for you something. I don't know. But for right now, the blue collar jobs, well, yes, they've been, a lot of it's been modernized and stuff like that and automated from what it was back when our parents were kids and stuff. There's still a lot to do with it today. But a lot of the white collar jobs like accounting and bookkeeping and research and stuff like that is all being taken over by AI. In 10, 15 years, you're going to either our kids are going to have to know how to program AI or engineering, or they're going to be blue collar. So we need those jobs over here because a lot of the white collar jobs we have right now are going to go away. They're going to be bye-bye, gone. I mean, there's not going to be much left. So we've got to get that taken care of. And that's another strategy of getting all these reshored companies back over into the United States. But like I said earlier, I don't know if whoever's on now was on earlier, is that will take time because you can't build a manufacturing center overnight. And especially if it's a major corporation, you have to go through budgets and board meetings and board votes and approvals, and they negotiate tax breaks and property tax breaks and all that with the different cities, what type of per however many 100 people they're going to employ. Cities or counties give them tax breaks, or states give them tax breaks at the state and city county level, and then they decide where they're going to go. But that's where they're getting all this at. And so we've got to get everything going and keep what we're doing, and it'll work. But I just think it's hilarious that people are attacking President Trump for trying to make peace with Saudi Arabia and Qatar and the United Arab Emirates and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, these people are tribal type nations. They do not, and they will never be like America. They might be able to have a type of free form democracy, but it will never be in the form of America. We will never modernize them 100% like America. And the only other way to do it is to accept them with who they are, and then we can't try to see what's in their mind. We ally with them, try to help them, and as long as they're doing good, we work with them. But we can't. I wish I'd gotten the words down for President Trump's speech the other day where he talked about this, because he really went into, he's just tired of fighting and going after stuff for no reason. I mean, it's insane that they expect it's like he should go ahead and not align with these countries. He should not try to invest with them and stuff and just sit on the side while China goes in there and swoops in and gets all the trillions and billions and dollars of investment. And everybody goes, well, it's an aren't well, everything that he signed while he was over there this week will be manufactured here in the United States. So it will create jobs here in the United States. It will create jobs for us. And what people don't understand, the Pakistan, uh, negotiating the Pakistan, Iran, India, Pakistan, India, truce. I mean, people don't understand how bad that could have gone. I mean, that could have been really, really bad, considering you're talking about two nuclear powers that if they had gone to, it could have turned into something worse than it was. I mean, luckily it didn't turn into anything. He got them to stop going after each other. But the last thing you would have wanted was taking two of the world's known nuclear powers and them going into a war, an all-out war, because then that could have spread. I mean, we've already got stuff going on with Ukraine and Russia. We didn't need another conflict going on. I mean, there's tons of conflicts going on down in uh is it far-fetched leaving property tax might come to an end renting your house from the government? No, I think property taxes will always be there, even if you rent it from the government. I don't see that happening. Because property taxes are a state thing, not a government thing. I don't know if this person's in the room anymore. I just noticed it, so I'm messed. I didn't see it earlier. I'm sorry. I was reading, talking, so I didn't see see your question. But yeah, I don't ever foresee property taxes moving away. I mean, states, that's where they get their income. That's how your school districts get their money. That's how your counties get their money. Property taxes are a state level thing. They're not a federal or a federal government thing. So the federal government has nothing to do with property taxes. The federal government gets a portion of the taxes from Social Security. They get portions of like the state sales tax. The states have to give them a portion of their taxes, but majority of everything a state collects is the state's money, and that's the state, not the federal government. So property taxes coming to an end for renting your house. No, that property taxes never end. I mean, Texas is working on a bill right now to help significantly lower property taxes by increasing the homestead exemption from really like 10 or 20, like 20 or 30,000 to 140,000. And then if you're 65 or older, or if you're disabled, it would increase the exemption of property value to 200,000, which, considering the average house in Texas is still around 235,000, that would help a lot of people out. I mean, I know this, it'd cut my property taxes in half pretty much. It nearly cut my property taxes in half, so I'm hoping it passes. But yeah, property taxes have to do with the federal government, not they don't have to do with the I mean, they have to do with state government, not federal government. So nothing federal government can do for property taxes. But that's a total different one we can go into. And then obviously a lot of people are freaking out about President Trump. He extended the olive branch to Iran because he keeps on saying he wants Iran to be a good country and all this and stuff. Well, that's because he doesn't want war. But he also said that they will not get a nuclear weapon. And then if they can't give up that nuclear weapon, then his negotiation's over. And that's what people don't understand is he goes and tries to be certain people, he's negotiates with them in a mean way. He goes at them hard. Other people, he tries to be all friendly and respectful and build them up, make them feel good about themselves, so they will hopefully negotiate with them. But that's what they do. Now, I'm waiting to see when this court case is going to start for the Wisconsin judge who was just indicted through a grand jury. And everybody keeps going, oh, they didn't have no evidence. Well, you have to have evidence to convene enough evidence to convene a grand jury, and you also have to have enough to convince a grand jury that the person's not guilty, but that there's enough evidence to charge them with it. Now, obviously, that's not that high of a standard, but for a judge, it would be a higher standard. So if you're going to convince a grand jury that they need to indict a sitting Wisconsin judge, they had to have had some pretty convincing evidence on that. And it's nice that for once now the judges are in this. I don't know how people aren't applauding this on both sides. Is the fact that for once a judge is getting they're getting charged for breaking the law that they uphold that they're not supposed to break. Just because they uphold the law and because they rule on the law doesn't mean they're above the law. It actually should mean that they're held to a higher standard than anybody else because they know the law back and front. They know it like the back of their hand. There's no reason in the world why she should not have known that that was illegal. Because judges, their job is not to rule on emotion. Their judge is not to rule on their beliefs. Their job is to rule on the Constitution and the law as it is written, as it was written, and interpret it based off of judicial precedents and off of anything that they can find from when the original law was passed, and so they can get an understanding of when that piece of legislation, that law was passed, what was the meaning of it. That is what their job is. Their job is not to rule on a law because they don't feel it, because they feel, oh, yeah, that's the law, but I don't feel it's right. I don't feel it's right anymore. It's not with today's. No. If you don't think it's up with today's society or today's way of thinking, then fine. Write your Congress member, write your senator. Tell them, hey, this law needs to be changed. And the thing is judges would know that more than anybody because the fact a lot of laws people don't even know about that are against the law because there's so many laws in our books. There's laws that haven't been used in hundreds of years that because once a law is put in the books, they don't get removed. They either don't get used for a long time or another law is passed to adjust that law, but it's still there. And that's the thing is people got to remember is the judges know about more. They should be the ones writing their Congress members, especially at state level, considering they're elected, not appointed, and saying, hey, you need to change this law. This isn't up to today's standards. This isn't up to today's society. But it is not their job to make that ruling. It is the job of the senator or Congress member of that state to put forward a piece of legislation to get it passed in the House or in the Senate to get that law changed. That is that's legislating, not being a judge. A judge's job is to do and follow the letter of the law in order and make a decision based on the preponderance of evidence or the evidence that they have been shown from both sides from both parties, from the prosecutor and the defendant, and decide who has proven their case more, the prosecutor or defendant. Now, this is in civil and stuff like that. Now, obviously, in criminal and stuff like that, that's up to the jury. And then it is up to the judge to give that jury instructions on what they're looking for to charge with what they need to get to a conviction. That is up to the jury. But on civil cases and stuff where you don't have a jury trial and you are being seen in front of a judge or judges, then it is up to that judge to hear both sides of the argument, look at the evidence from both sides, not from an emotional point of view, but from an intellectual point of view, and make a ruling on that. So a judge thinking that she can sit there and just help an illegal immigrant sneak out the back door when she knows ICE is literally waiting outside the door from them, and she knows that ICE has a detainer, a removal order on them, a detainer order to detain them, and she wants to just push them out the back door. I'm sorry, that's obstructing justice. That's a felony. Same thing that a lot of people are arguing you look at technically what the Congress members did. Now, obviously, it was felony trespassing for federal land. Some people have been arguing that you can consider it insurrection. But the question is considering it would be hard to prove that because it wasn't at the White House or it wasn't at the the Capitol or anything. They were on at a privately contracted federal facility. So that would be kind of hard to prove the one part in a court of law. But as far as being felony trespassing, that is true. Now, as far as Congress impeaching their own members, their members are it's the same standard, almost the same standard as impeaching the president, just a little lower, as high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, a felony trespassing charge would be considered a high crime misdemeanor. That means they can be removed from office. They can be impeached. That's one move that can be done. It won't be for insurrection because they weren't going after the heads of governments. I mean, they weren't trying to come after the Secretary of State or the president, vice president, other congressional members trying to stop the government's daily business or whatever. They were trying to get into a privately owned government facility. So while I would love it for that to happen, because it would love to throw that in their face after what they did to us, I don't see it happening. So hopefully they'll at least get a felony trespass charge, and hopefully they'll be stripped of all their committee positions while they're waiting for that, and then hopefully they will be impeached and removed from office once all is said and done. But that is going to be up to the congressional members, because once again, Democrats love to stick together and love to take care of themselves, and it would have to be a 2/3 decision. It can't be a just split decision like it is now. It's not like passing a bill or something in the House where you only need the majority, a simple majority. You need a supermajority even to impeach a congressional member. So unfortunately, I don't see them being impeached or removed from office. They could be kind of forced out of office. But honestly, because even though President Trump's so-called felonies were never felonies, they were misdemeanors it was way past the losing the terminology right now, but he shouldn't have been able to been charged for them. They were way past that timeline, and they tried to construe them all together and take what was a state misdemeanor and make it into a federal felony, which technically means federal charges don't get charged at a state level; they get charged at the federal level, which is another mistake there. But anyway, those charges have now been reversed. He won the appeal, like everybody said they would. That judge was biased. He was Judge Chauvin. He was literally he hated Trump, and now he's even been awarded back his attorney's fees that he paid, like 400 and some odd million attorney's fees that he paid during the case. But what they don't tell you, so the Democrats are trying to wear it. They wanted a felony charge because they now think of it as a badge of honor. Well, Trump, he was charged with being a felon and everything, and he still got elected for president. His poll numbers actually went up. So hey, if we get a felony and we actually commit the felony, not commit a misdemeanor that supposedly was us, but could have been our bookkeeper at the company, that were a bunch of small individual misdemeanors, and had a prosecutor that convoluted them all together to try to attach them to some outlying issue that made them all together to then require it to be a felony that made it no longer past statute of limitations, because statute of limitations for misdemeanor were like 5 years, felonies 10 years. And we can do this now. But yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, I think it's hilarious that they think now they wear it as a badge of honor, and they actually wanted to get arrested. They want to go to jail because they think that it'll help them get elected. It's insane that they actually think that will happen. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's hilarious that they think that that's going to help them get that would help them get elected. That somehow, because they get charged with a felony that's actually a felony, and that there's actually, I don't know, literal proof that they've done it. I mean, it's literally on video camera, it's videotaped, it's recorded, it's on body cams. that they committed the crime, that they actually attacked the federal officer. So you could actually get them with assaulting an officer on top, a federal officer on top of federal trespassing. But they think that that's going to help them get elected and gain clout or whatever with the American people, because where Trump was actually being the justice system was being politicized to attack him for something that was not even a felony. They were trying to connect a couple business misdemeanors that are actually charged to the business, not that way, and trying to connect it to some other thing to make it all in the hush money case, to make it then 34 individual felonies, and now it extends the. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, and then the judge sit there. He showed his colors during the trial. He left that trial. It's almost like the only reason. It's almost like he did it on purpose. He knew President Trump wasn't guilty, but he also knew that if he ruled and acted like he was being fair or favoring President Trump's attorneys, that he would lose his, that he wouldn't work in New York as a judge again, that he wouldn't have a future political career. So it's almost like he purposely did what he did to secure his future political career, knowing that his case was going to be overturned, knowing that even if it didn't get overturned at the federal district court level, appellate court level, that it would get overturned at the Supreme Court level. And then that way he could cover CYA. I think that's what happened. I don't think he ever agreed President Trump was guilty. I think he did it to cover his butt. And that's why he made all those mistakes that literally led President Trump to get his case dismissed. And yet people are still trying to use the felon item. They're still trying to say, oh, he's a felon, he got elected. I see all these comments in my people comment in my remarks about this stuff, and I'm like, really? And then to all the people who comment about, oh, it's unconstitutional, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the Constitution is not black and white. There's a lot of gray areas. What one person says is the only agreement of the Constitution is there is a right to free speech. Okay, that if you take a case to the Supreme Court to get a vote on it, to get a 9-0 decision, the only way you'll get is there a freedom of speech in the United States? You will get a 9-0 decision that there's a freedom of the speech in the United States. But now, how far that freedom of speech goes will always be divided. That is where the problem comes in. So the same thing with saying that, oh, due process is a constitutional amendment for everybody, or a constitutional right for everybody. At the criminal due process, yes, procedural due process. Now that is another argument. It was never considered for all peoples until a what's called the Japanese immigrant case, or something v. Fisher in the 1800s, and still even in that, the majority council ruled that they should have a form of due process. The dissenting opinion actually stated that because of that it was not, that case was not subject to judicial review, because it was, the person had been heard by the executive officer, because back then we didn't have Border Patrol and stuff like that. So it was an executive officer versus a deportation officer, that they had a chance to contest their case, then been heard, and they had decided that they did not have, their case did not fit for them staying. So, and in that fact, the Supreme Court actually did not have judicial review on that. So with now having a more conservative Supreme Court, you could get a ruling that was on the dissenting side of that case and overturn the Supreme Court precedents. Also, now, if the birthright citizenship executive order, if that gets overturned, that will also open the argument to that somebody that here is illegally is not subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and therefore, since it is a procedural charge, they did not commit a crime, like they're not being charged for unaliving somebody or abusing a child or abusing a woman. They're not being arrested. They're not being charged with an additional crime. They are just being literally removed from the country. That is a procedural due process, and it could be ruled that, hey, they didn't try to come through the border and claim the right documents. They didn't try to make an asylum claim. They didn't try to make a claim for to be claimed as a whatchamacallit, so that they don't qualify. They waived their right to get a chance to argue to stay here. And honestly, that's the way it should be. Because they known if they had been caught at the border, they had no claim to asylum, no claim as a refugee status, so they would have been, guess what? They would have been sent out of the country. They would have been deported. So that's why they didn't come to the city. Come to the border. That's why they didn't try to come with correct documents, because they know that, well, they're not good. They wouldn't have been allowed in. So, it's insane that they think that that would happen. It's literally ridiculous. But that's where that's at. How am I detective inactivity? I'm moving my head. You can hear my voice. I know you can hear my voice. So explain to me how it's inactivity. Yeah, no inactivity. I can hear my voice on the other thing I'm watching myself. I'm moving my head around. I'm moving my arms. So hello, camera. Hello. Man, TikTok's live can be crazy sometimes, but I don't know. Hopefully, for all these new people I gained this week, I would think I'd start getting more lives, but I guess I need to start pushing them out more. If people requested to come up, I would bring them up, but most haven't got any requests to come up as multi-guest yet. And honestly, until I know people more, I don't want to bring a lot of people up because of the fact that I'm not going to get kicked off of here because somebody wants to troll. That's the way it comes down to. So, and it's crazy that of all the people I follow, out of all my friends, it's only showing 3 people I can invite that are actually on. Yes, nobody I know is actually on Facebook, on TikTok right now because I'm looking at co-host requests. It only gives me 3, but they're all live with guests. And then this one's no co-host access. So can't offer a co-host, and nobody to request is multi-guest. Won't even let me invite anybody because they need to allow multi-guests to be invited out to people that you follow that are shown that they're active on TikTok, but not necessarily on live. That's the way they need to do it, because this is ridiculous that they. Wonder if I should change that. Probably won't give me as many multi-guests, but change request to request instead of requests from viewers, allow requests from followers, which means at least I know the people who are requesting to come up are people that follow me and that probably at least align somewhat with my views. I think I'm going to change that. Alrighty. But I guess it looks like it's dying down here. I got 1 new follower today. 2 says 3. Only shows 2 gifts, but I show a heart, a rose, and a heart. So it looks like 3 gifts, but I wonder if I should go ahead. Oh, hello. Somebody joined? Oh, no, they knocked off. But I wonder if I should just go ahead and end this live since there's not really anybody on here. And yeah, because it's saying I need 289.4K diamonds to reach 99. Holy moly, that's a lot of diamonds. Saying I need almost 300 diamonds just to get to number 99 in the rankings. That's insane. Alrighty. Well, I've been on here for literally almost an hour. So if I don't get anybody else up on here that wants to come on live or wants to do something, then I will go ahead and sign off. But I'll let it go for a full 60 minutes, I guess, and see what happens. Well, at least I should have more of my live here today to send out to actually try to post some videos from, since I got gifts and stuff. It should have some cuts and takes and stuff to push out. But I will be trying to get on here at least once a week now. Unfortunately, I don't have a door in my office. It's a big open room. I have added some soundproofing panels to try to help with the have any echo on my mic, and then obviously with the loudness from the kids. But once I can get that door on, it'll be a lot better. But my goal will be for sure is once the rest of this bill gets put together, I will read through it and then do a live over actually covering everything that ends up in the big beautiful bill. Like I said, right now the only portion that's been officially pushed through, or that at least has gotten news, I haven't looked through all the sections yet, was the portion on the taxes. So they obviously got all of his campaign promises in there, plus the extension of the 2017 tax cuts. So we will not be seeing a tax raise this next year. Our taxes, our tax ranges will be staying the same. Now, obviously, unless you see a major pay raise this year, then okay, you might see you might raise up on your tax brackets. But that would be that. Also, please check out my profile. There's a tree link on there. Follow my other social media sites. Because like I said, once I get enough people watching these lives and get enough followers, enough people coming in and watching the lives, I will be doing the more PG version on here, sections on here, and then the second half of my podcast or live show, I will be moving over to YouTube or Rumble, to where I can pretty much talk about anything that's not just blatantly out there. Conspiracy theory, I can get a borderline with conspiracy theories, but I'm not going to, because eventually someday I hope to possibly run for political office. That's one of the whole reasons why I'm doing this, is to get better about being on camera, speaking, also to build me a following and all that, because I don't have a lot of money. I don't have big donors to donate for me to win an election. So if I want to run statewide election, like for a Senate or a U.S. Congress member, then, well, I need followers. I need social media's help. So that's one of the big reasons why I'm doing it. Also, I enjoy doing it, but right now I'm not doing too bad, I would think, because I actually saw somebody earlier today that followed me, that I followed and followed me back, that had like 17,000 followers, which is 10,000 more than me, but yet she was barely getting out of 2, 3, 400 jail. And the last 2 weeks, my posts haven't broken 15K or 14K like they did the other week. I still got 17,000 views yesterday. It was just 9,000 on one, 4,000 on another, 2,000 on another, so-and-so. But very few of my posts anymore stay below 500, 600. So I guess I'm not doing too bad with my content. I know I can always get better at it. So if anybody notices anything or you see anything, let me know. I'm always open to constructive criticism. Just straight out insults and name calling I will not put up with, but constructive criticism I'm always open for. So please let me know if you see anything that you know, and then I will get going with that. But yeah, so now I got some people on here. Anybody want to come up, get some chat going? Nope. I had 3 people in, then they're gone. Alrighty, well, that is an hour and 4 minutes. I guess I am going to end this live. I had some people jump up there, but then everybody decided to jump out. So I thought I was gonna get some. I could have gone back over some stuff and started talking, but nobody, everybody left out. So why is it echoing like 3 times? Oh, that froze. Okay, that's why it froze there for a second. I was wondering why it kept on repeating. But it's maybe that's why they're not seeing me. Yeah, it's kind of running behind. Maybe I need to quit trying to post out on 4K. Maybe that's why it's doing lagging on me. But no, please, if you get up in here, like, follow, subscribe. I really want to get to being able to do this more, but right now it's just hard to do that with no subscribers. Also, it's hard to force myself to get on here whenever it's not a bunch of people on. I mean, I had one really good live where I had like 140 people come through. I had like 8 or 9 people all on at one time. I mean, also I know it helps that if I do this more often and consistently, which I haven't been doing lately because this last semester I was super busy in school, but now I am only have one class this semester, so should be no problem. So I can't remember what was my 110 minutes. It's only showing me 65. Yeah, I'm not going to stay on here 110 minutes. I'll just have to go live on a separate day because hopefully maybe tomorrow will be enough to go over some more stuff. But alrighty, I like to thank anybody who came to listen. This is Dr. Hill with Patriots Corner. Signing off.